A child is born. Its first breath and birth cry announce the miracle of new life. But what of that other miracle, the one that takes place deep in the uterine world of the mother, hidden from our eyes? The development of the human fetus is a mystery we have accepted on faith. The 9-month journey from conception to birth begins in the female's fallopian tubes with fertilization. One of several hundred million of the man's sperm unites with the one egg or ovum released from the woman's ovary on or near the 14th day after the start of her last period. At the moment of fertilization, a single sperm penetrates the egg's cell membrane with its half of all the chromosomes necessary for new human life. The vital chromosome that determines the sex of the child is carried to the egg in the sperm. And here, at the instant of fertilization, the question of the baby's gender is determined. Once the egg is fertilized by that one sperm, the egg is sealed off from all other sperm. With conception, new life develops rapidly. Development milestones will be measured from the date of the last menstrual period. The fertilized egg cell divides within moments of conception. First, 2 cells, then 4, then 8, until there is a multitude of cells. Within 4 to 6 days, the cluster of cells slowly drifts down to the uterine cavity, where it submerges itself in the rich, nutritive lining of the uterus. Three weeks from the moment the sperm entered and fertilized the egg, a primitive disc, that is the embryo, bends to form a curve. A head and little bumps that will be arms, legs, and eyes appear in the 4th week. The heart, beating 200 times a minute, begins pumping blood through the embryo that is now no bigger than a pea. Over the next 4 weeks, the embryo's upper body develops rapidly. The eyes, ears, and nose take shape. Fingers and toes are becoming distinct as the arms and legs approach their final form. The embryo is now the size of a walnut. The embryo is floating free in the cushioning fluid of the amniotic sac, not big enough to make its presence felt, but progressing rapidly. As it grows, life support systems develop alongside it. The gnarled umbilical cord is transferring nutrients, oxygen, and waste products back and forth between the mother and the embryo. The placenta at the other end of the umbilical cord processes virtually everything transferred between mother and embryo. The placenta occupies approximately 1/3 of the uterus and functions to protect, anchor, and nurture the developing fetus. Within the blood-rich mass of tissue, only a thin layer of cells separates the mother's blood from the blood of the developing child. Nutrients from the mother's body travel easily from the placenta through the umbilical cord to the fetus. While the placenta stops many viruses and bacteria from entering the fetal bloodstream, most drugs can, unfortunately, cross over to affect the fetus at this point. During the crucial first 10 weeks of development, drugs ingested by the mother can cause defects in organ development in the embryo. About 8 weeks from the last menstrual cycle, sonography or ultrasound detects the first movements of the embryo in its watery environment. Growth is rapid now, a few millimeters every day. As growth continues, the uterus is changing size and position, and pressure may be exerted on the bladder. The mother now experiences the frequent urge to urinate. At 10 weeks from the last menstrual cycle, the organs are almost fully developed, and the embryo is considered a fetus. The length of the human fetus at 11 weeks measures about 50 millimeters or 2 inches. Thin and infinitely delicate, the tiny being weighs no more than a penny. The head of the 12-week-old fetus looms large in its amniotic universe. The eyelids have grown over the bulging eyes and fused shut. The tips of fingers and toes reveal nails, the color and translucence of tiny seed pearls. In the male fetus, the genital bud that earlier in development had female characteristics has now grown into a small but unmistakable penis. By 16 weeks, the swirling patterns of a soft growth of hair called lanugo are all over the body. Lanugo and a natural grease called vernix protect the skin of the fetus from long-term waterlogging. Between 16 and 20 weeks, the fetal body is no longer translucent as fragile china. Parts of the skeleton, formerly composed entirely of cartilage, are becoming dense, bony tissue. Rounder, softer, more baby-like contours are forming as deposits of fatty tissue gradually form. The fetus begins to swallow amniotic fluid at 16 weeks, and its rhythmic hiccuping is felt by the mother. Between 16 and 20 weeks, the vague stirrings of fetal life register as something akin to rumblings low in the belly, or as faint, unforgettable flicks that some women liken to the quick movement of a fish's tail. A sonogram of the fetus at 20 to 25 weeks shows the fetus's movement. It is more than 10 inches long at 25 weeks. Its heartbeat is strong and less rapid, about 160 beats per minute. Between the 28th week and birth, the fetus nearly doubles in length, from 12 inches to 20 inches, and triples its weight, shooting from 2 pounds to 7.5 pounds. As the second trimester gives way to the third, the mother's uterus enlarges upward from the navel to accommodate the growth. The uterus expands toward the sternum, and the internal organs shift in position to make way for the intrusion. The mother is more aware of the fetus's movements. Is the fetus calm, reacting only occasionally with the delayed movement of an arm or leg? Or does the fetus express itself with vigorous kicks and frequent changes of position? The personality of the tiny being is very possibly mirrored in the temper of its prenatal movements. As the mother adjusts to her growing weight and discomfort, the fetus is acquiring the characteristic chubbiness of a newborn. Layers of fat are building beneath the skin. The nails of its fingers and toes are growing long and hard. So long and hard, it's not unusual to find scratches from those fingernails on the baby's face at birth. The soft growth of body hair, called lanugo, falls off in the third trimester. Suspended in the amniotic fluid, it is ingested by the fetus. The rhythmic inhaling and exhaling of fluid is nature's way of preparing the fetus to breathe after birth. Nature's preparation for childbirth begins with the rotation of the fetus to an upside-down position so that the baby emerges head first from the mother. A rhythmic tightening of the uterus signals the time of birth drawing near. As the contractions become more frequent, the canal at the mouth of the uterus opens or dilates. The mucus plug loosens and dissipates in a show of bloody discharge. The membranes enclosing the amniotic sac break under pressure, and some of the fluid surrounding the fetus leaks out. As contractions increase in frequency, duration, and intensity, the cervical canal opens wider and wider to accept the baby's passage. Birth, from darkness to intense light, from the weightless enclosure of the uterus to a barrage of new sensations. The umbilical cord is cut. The opening between the two upper chambers of the heart closes, and the lungs begin to move and process air. From 1 cell at conception to 200 million at birth, the newborn child makes its beginning in the outside world.